Good morning. Thank you all for attending. My name is Allison Saul, and I'm a research fellow at the University of Nevada here in Las Vegas. And I want to talk today about women in STEM and some of the overall barriers, challenges, and successes. So to give you a little background, based on data back in 2013, the percentage of women in the U.S. workforce is about 53%. If you look into the science and engineering workforce, however, only about 29% are women. And if you break that down even further into HVAC occupations, only about 1% are women, okay? So it's great that this is being recognized, that there is a gender disparity in these occupations, and I'm happy today to talk about some of the research that's been done in this area. So why aren't there a lot of women in STEM? Well, today I want to talk about three main barriers: societal, organizational, and individual barriers. And you can think of them as going from large to small. So we have societal barriers, organizational barriers, and then individual barriers. At the societal level, men and women are put into what we refer to as separate spheres. And that begins really early. Like when you're a kid, okay? When you're a kid, if you think back to some of the toys that you played with, if you even go to the toy store now, you see boys and girls are encouraged to play with toys that are very different. Girls are encouraged to play with toys that foster nurturance and cooperation, while boys are encouraged to play with toys that foster dominance and aggression. You can see that with girls' toys, they're dolls, they're kitchens. With boy toys, they're battle and aggressive. And that filters into adulthood. Okay, so one of the theories is that this socialization as kids places men and women into different career paths. So women, for example, you'll find more of women in teaching and nursing fields that are nurturing and caregiving. So you've got those societal barriers that are overarching, that are umbrella type, okay? Then you've got the organizational barriers, and this refers to workplace. In the workplace, institutions tend to value what we refer to as the ideal worker. The ideal worker is a worker that puts their job first. The ideal worker has no other obligations but their job. They're always on call, they're able to do whatever's needed to be done, they're there early, they're there late. And in decades past, that was a lot easier because men worked and women were at home with the children or taking care of the family. In today's economic state, though, if you have a two-parent household, it's more likely that both partners are working. And so living up to that ideal worker norm is not so easy, okay? Something has to give. So that ideal worker norm comes into the organizational barrier. Individual barriers refer to barriers that women may have themselves and barriers from other individuals. So one of the theories is that women aren't as confident as men. They need to grow a thicker skin to deal with men's occupations. That's just one of the theories. Another type of individual barrier is harassment and discrimination and just an overall hostile work environment for women. So I'm not in HVAC, but I do know that there are compressors, right? Okay, so I thought it would be interesting to place those barriers into this compressor analogy. If women are coming into STEM disciplines with carrying societal barriers telling them that they're not supposed to be there, they go into the workplace and they don't live up to the ideal worker norm because historically women take care of kids and they are obligated to more family responsibilities, so they don't have as much time as men. And then they face individual barriers. So they're told that they need to just toughen up, or they're harassed or discriminated against, and they get pushed out of the occupations. And if you have an issue, I would think you would, with a compressor, I would think you would think it was the compressor itself and not the air inside of it. Okay? So it's these barriers themselves and not the women within them. Okay? So what happens when women are in the workplace, are in STEM disciplines? And in workplaces in general, we refer to it as the gendered workplace. In these gendered workplaces, policies and procedures and the overall environment advantage men over women. We see that in 3 different ways: in occupational segregation, workplace policies, and discrimination. Occupational segregation refers to men and women being in the same job, but maybe given different tasks because they may be seen as more qualified or better able to do some tasks than others. And they're just given those tasks because they're a woman. You also see that in what we refer to as the glass ceiling. So men will advance quicker than women and get in those top positions more often than women. So there's a segregation there, there's a disparity there within the workplace that advantages men. Workplace policies also advantage men. We see that in our overall U.S. policy. The U.S. is the only developed country that doesn't mandate employers to have maternity leave or paternity leave. And if a woman is in a workplace and has a child, she has to take time off. And that sets her back if there aren't any protections there, okay? So men are able to advance faster, even if they started at the same time. We also see this gendered workplace in discrimination. So if you have a man and a woman and they have the same job, they have the same tasks, he is probably making more than she is. He probably started at a higher salary than she did. Okay, so we see that discrimination play out in their gendered workplace in terms of the gender wage gap. Okay, and that's in a lot of other occupations too. It's not just STEM. Gender wage gap is evident in many occupations. So what are some of the successes? So here are some programs. I'm sure there are many more that I was able to find for this talk that aim to help support women in STEM in the HVAC industry. One of their goals is to increase representation of women, show women and girls that this is a viable career, that this is a viable option. And what we've seen is that women are increasing. There are more women in the past few years in the HVAC industry. Mentorship has shown to be successful. So if you have a woman in the industry who's been there a while who can provide a mentorship, that might be helpful. Supportive networks are also really helpful. So women who have been in those shoes, who can provide some support, that has seen some success. It's really important too to have women in leadership roles. Some organizations will have women in leadership roles, and that's certainly a success, but there needs to be more. Women can bring to the table some of the unique challenges that women might face. If they're in a role to help make decisions, they might be better able to represent women in the organization. Companies also have improved workplace policies. So, for example, parental leave. So it's not just about women taking care of kids, it's about men too. Men should be given that option as well. But also, increasingly, as our baby boomer generation is aging, women in particular tend to have elder parents or elder adults that they have to care for. And so you might even have women who are taking care of kids and elder parents. And how can the workplace help support that? How can you keep that employee in your organization while also helping them manage what needs to be done outside of their workplace? Again, improved family-related workplace policies isn't just about women. If you provide the same thing to men, it helps with the overall work-life balance. And what we know is that when people are happy with their work-life balance, they're happier with their job, and they're more productive, and they stick around. Okay? There are also career reentry programs. So if women do take time off to take care of kids or to take care of an elder parent, there are programs that help them get back into the workforce. And I believe that is the Next Chapter program in Johnson Controls. So I think that's a great program. So you're able to take care of your other obligations, but still have that support, have that supportive network and supportive organization to get you back in. So increasing representation is great, but it may not actually be enough. So it's not just enough to get women into the workplace, into these fields. You actually have to support them. Find out why they're leaving. Find out what are some of the challenges and see how you can help them. And again, it's not just about women. If there are issues that men are having too, you should take a look at that. So increasing representation is great. It's really great to show women that it's a viable career, but again, it may not be enough. In fact, studies on women faculty, so women faculty who are in STEM disciplines, we see that there are more women and girls studying STEM, okay? And there's about equal men and women at the high school level, right? But once they graduate and get into the workplace, women start dropping out. And a lot of that has to do with family. A lot of that has to do because when women are entering the workforce, it's also the years where they'll start a family. And so that is a big issue for women. And increasingly men too, because if you have two parents who are working in a household, men want to be involved too. And you should make that, if you make it available for women, you should also have the same availability for men. So mentoring is great. Supportive networks is also great. We also need to have more women in leadership roles, again, to raise awareness and to help support women and to also act as role models for women in lower positions. And all of that is important to the success of women in STEM, but also men, families, and business in general. So you will have the company will thrive if there are employees that are happy. And happiness and satisfaction comes from work-life balance. And historically, again, women have been the ones who have taken on more childcare, more household responsibilities, and helping support them with flexible work hours, maternity leave, things like that can help their success. So I'd like to open it up to questions.